Welcome back to the deep dive. I have to admit, when I saw this stack of research for this week's topic, I uh, I hesitated.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
usually we're tearing into tech trends,
Yeah.
history or psychology, but
Hmm.
today we are talking about prayer.
Right.
And I'll be honest, my first instinct was to check if I'd wandered into a Sunday school lesson by mistake.
Yeah.
It feels, oh, wow, it feels heavy, charged, a little out of our lane maybe.
It's interesting you say that because that hesitation is exactly what the source material we're looking at anticipates. It knows that for a lot of people, the word prayer carries just a massive amount of baggage.
Totally. You think of dusty pews, you think of guilt, or maybe you just think of talking to the ceiling and feeling, I don't know, a bit foolish.
Feeling like you're just wishing, right?
Exactly. It feels passive. But having read through this material, I think my initial reaction was completely wrong.
Mm.
Because this isn't a theology textbook we're looking at.
No, not at all.
It reads more like a
Yeah.
technical manual.
That is the perfect description. The source material we have today effectively strips away all the paint, the varnish, the sentimental clutter. It presents prayer not as a religious ritual, but as a technology.
Technology, that's the hook that got me. The source explicitly defines prayer as a sophisticated internal technology designed to alter your neurobiology first, and then your external reality second.
Which is a huge claim.
A massive claim. It's claiming to be an operating manual for the human will to align with a, quote, universal will.
And that is such a crucial distinction. The text argues that the cultural fluff version of prayer, the image of a helpless child asking a sky deity for a favor, is actually a fundamental misunderstanding of the mechanism.
So that's not a lottery ticket.
Exactly. It argues that if you treat prayer like a lottery ticket where you just hope your number gets picked, you've already lost. But if you treat it like a programming language for reality,
That's when things get interesting. A programming language for reality. I mean, that is a huge statement. It sounds almost like science fiction or, something out of simulation theory.
it does, but the source immediately grounds this in biology. It doesn't start with faith in some abstract sense. It starts with the hardware, right here in our skulls.
He starts with the logic of attention.
The logic of attention, yes. To understand why this technology supposedly works, you have to first understand the machine that's running it. And that brings us to the RAS, the reticular activating system.
Okay, I remember this vaguely from biology class, but walk me through it again. This is the brain's filter, right?
That's it exactly. Think about your environment right now. I mean, right this second. There are literally millions of bits of sensory data hitting you.
The hum of the computer, the air temperature.
The pressure of your feet on the floor, the background noise outside. If your conscious mind tried to process all of that at once, you would, and this is not an exaggeration, you would literally go insane.
You'd short circuit.
Completely. So the RAS is the bouncer.
The bouncer at the club of your consciousness. I like that.
It's a good way to think of it. Its job is to block out 99.9% of that data and only let in what you have previously deemed important.
Okay, that makes sense. But how does this connect to prayer? Because usually when people talk about answered prayer, they mean some kind of miracle. They mean, I asked for money and a check showed up in the mail. They aren't talking about brain filters.
Well, let's look at a really common example, the classic red car phenomenon. If you decide today that you're going to buy a red Tesla, what happens tomorrow on your drive to work?
You see red Teslas everywhere. They're all over the place.
Everywhere. So did the Tesla factory suddenly churn out thousands of red cars overnight just for you?
No, of course not. They were always there.
They were always there. They were interacting with you, parked on your street, driving past you every single day. But you were blind to them because your RAS had filtered them out as irrelevant noise.
It wasn't on the guest list.
It wasn't on the list. The moment you tagged red Tesla as important, the filter opened. The bouncer let them in.
So the argument here is that prayer is essentially a tool for reprogramming that filter, for consciously changing the guest list.
That's the core biological mechanism, yes. When you focus intently and emotionally on a specific outcome, say opportunity or strength, you are giving the bouncer a new guest list. You are telling the hardware, this is now important. Scan for this.
And then suddenly, you see an opportunity that was sitting right in front of you the whole time. You perceive a solution that was previously invisible to you.
The phone number you needed was on a billboard you drive past every day. The person who can help you was in your contacts list all along. It wasn't magic. It was perception.
So answered prayer, in this context, might not be magic raining from the sky. It's a perception shift. You're downloading new data from an environment that you were previously blocking.
Precisely. And this is why the source says you have to be so careful what you pray for, or maybe more accurately, what you focus on.
Because the filter works both ways.
It works both ways. If you focus on life is hard and nothing ever works out for me, your RAS will dutifully go to work, pointing out every single piece of evidence to prove you right. It will actively filter out the joy, the good luck, the opportunities. You are literally programming your reality to be negative.
That makes a ton of sense biologically. But the source doesn't stop there. It pivots from biology to, well, physics. It brings up the observer effect and quantum mechanics, which, and I have to be the skeptic here, is usually where these types of discussions go off the rails into woo-woo territory.
I get that.
Yeah.
And it's a fair criticism of a lot of material in this space, but the source actually handles it with a very grounded, very practical analogy.
Okay.
It compares the human mind to two different types of light sources, a simple light bulb and a laser.
A light bulb and a laser.
All right, let's
Think about a standard 60-watt light bulb. It illuminates a room. It's useful, for sure. But the energy is scattered. It's going in every direction at once, up, down, sideways. It's diffuse, incoherent.
Now think about a laser. It might be the same amount of energy, but it is coherent. All the light waves are moving in lockstep in the same direction at the exact same frequency. And a 60-watt laser can cut through steel.
Same amount of energy, just organized differently. Radically different result.
Exactly. The source argues that most people's internal state, their consciousness, is like that light bulb. It's scattered.
Oh, 100%.
You're thinking about the grocery list, you're worried about that email you sent, you're scrolling TikTok, you're anxious about a bill. Your psyche is fractured into 1,000 different directions.
Guilty as charged. I think that's just the default state for modern life, isn't it?
It is. And the source argues that you cannot impact reality, you cannot cut steel, if your energy is that diffuse. Prayer, in this technical definition, is the technology of gathering that fractured psyche into a singularity.
Into a single point.
Into a single point of energetic weight. It's about achieving coherence. It's the act of turning the light bulb into the laser.
So when we talk about fervent prayer, it's not about screaming louder or being more emotional in a chaotic way.
No.
It's about focus.
Yeah.
Pure, undistracted focus.
It's about energetic coherence. And this leads directly to the next big concept, which is resonance. The source drops a line here that, honestly, it just stopped me in my tracks.
What's the line?
You don't attract what you want, you attract what you are.
You attract what you are. Okay, that sounds a lot like the law of attraction, but
Well,
maybe stripped of some of the magical thinking?
it's the mechanical explanation of it. Think about it like a radio tuner. You can verbally ask for abundance all day long. You can say the words, I want abundance. But if your internal emotional state, your actual broadcast signal, is vibrating at the frequency of fear of poverty, well, that's the signal the system receives.
The universe doesn't hear the words. It feels the vibration.
Right. You cannot tune in to the classical music station if your dial is set to heavy metal, no matter how much you scream at the radio to play Mozart. It's physically impossible.
So you're saying the system, or God, or whatever you want to call it, it responds to the frequency, not the vocabulary.
That's the core argument. Effective prayer isn't begging, it's tuning. It is the active, conscious work of shifting your internal frequency to match the external desire. You have to bridge that gap between I lack this and I possess this internally before it has any chance of showing up externally.
Okay, so if this is a technology, and we are the operators of that technology, then the condition of the operator has to be paramount.
It's everything.
Right. You can't run high-performance software on a computer that's full of viruses and overheating.
Exactly. And this brings us to what the source calls the prerequisites. It says before you even open your mouth to ask for anything, there's some serious work to be done on the operator.
And the first condition is a Greek term, kenosis.
Kenosis, which means self-emptying.
Self-emptying.
There's a classic Zen story that just fits perfectly here. A scholar goes to a Zen master to learn about Zen. The master starts pouring tea into the scholar's cup. He fills it to the brim, but then he just keeps pouring.
And the tea's overflowing everywhere.
Spilling onto the table, onto the scholar's lap. The scholar finally yells, "Stop! The cup is full. It can't hold anymore."
Right.
And the master calmly says, "Like this cup, you are full of your own opinions and speculations. How can I show you Zen unless you first empty your cup?"
And that's the state most of us are in. We are full. We're full of noise. We're full of ego. We're full of anxiety.
And, crucially, full of predetermined outcomes. We go into prayer thinking we know exactly how the answer should look. I want this specific job at this specific salary by this Tuesday.
We're dictating the terms.
We're dictating the terms. The source says you have to die to that rigid identity and that demand for control before you even start.
Because nature abhors a vacuum. That's the physics principle.
That's it. If you create an internal vacuum, if you truly empty yourself of the I know best, then the divine or the universal will or whatever you want to call it rushes in to fill that space. But if you're full of yourself, there is literally no room for a new signal to enter.
There's another prerequisite here that I found fascinating because it bridges that gap between the mystical and the medical. Heart-brain alignment. It actually references the Institute of Heart Math.
This is where it gets very, very scientific. The research they cite shows that the heart generates an electromagnetic field that is significantly stronger than the brain's field.
How much stronger?
The numbers are pretty wild. It's
Yeah.
roughly 60 times greater electrically and up to 5,000 times greater magnetically.
Wait, 5,000 times stronger. So the heart is the main broadcaster, not the brain.
In terms of raw electromagnetic energy, yes. So here's the conflict that happens all the time. Your brain, your conscious mind is thinking, I want to be healed. I am healthy. That's the thought.
The affirmation.
Right. But your heart, your emotional center, is feeling the absolute terror of the sickness. It's feeling the deep, vibrating fear of, I am dying.
And since the heart is the stronger transmitter.
The heart wins every single time. The stronger signal overrides the weaker one. You are broadcasting fear of sickness at a high volume while whispering health. The system responds to the broadcast.
So the fix, according to the source, is emotional coherence. You have to get the heart and the brain to say the same thing, to broadcast on the same frequency.
And this is maybe the hardest part of the whole practice. You have to generate the feeling of the outcome before it exists. This is what the source calls gratitude before receipt.
Gratitude before receipt.
It's easy to be grateful after you get the promotion. Anyone can do that. It takes spiritual mastery to genuinely feel the gratitude and relief of that promotion while you are still sitting in the cubicle.
That sounds incredibly difficult. It almost sounds like faking it.
It's not faking it. The source calls it hacking the timeline. You are convincing your physiology, your very cells, that the event has already occurred. When you do that, all the internal resistance drops and your signal becomes perfectly coherent. The light bulb becomes a laser.
Okay, the final prerequisite mentioned is radical humility. But I really like how the source clarifies this. It's not about beating yourself up. It's not about saying, I'm a worm, I'm terrible.
No, that's just a different kind of ego. Self-deprecation is just ego in a cheap disguise. Real humility is just accuracy.
Accuracy.
It's admitting that your perspective is limited. You're looking at the world through a keyhole the source calls asking for very specific outcomes, like, make this specific person fall in love with me. A poison pill.
Because you don't actually know what's best for you.
You have no idea. That person might be the worst possible thing that could ever happen to you. That job you're desperate for might lead to burnout and misery. You're asking for things based on an incredibly limited data set.
So what's the alternative?
The ultimate prayer position, according to the source, is letting go of the steering wheel. It's the courage to say, I do not know the way, you know the way, you drive. And there's an incredible relief in that. It frees you from the crushing burden of trying to be omniscient.
Yeah. Okay, so let's assume we've bought into the theory. We understand the RAS, the laser analogy, and we're at least trying to empty the cup. How do we actually do it? This is where the source breaks it down into a very clear protocol. Phase 1 is called immersion.
Right.
And step 1 is surprisingly practical. Physical isolation.
It's incredibly practical, and it's not ritualistic. The old instruction, go into your closet and shut the door, isn't just about privacy from other people, it's about bandwidth.
Explain that. What do you mean by bandwidth?
Your brain burns a massive amount of glucose just processing visual and auditory data. If your eyes are open, part of your brain is processing the room. If your door is open, your subconscious is monitoring for threats.
You're still scanning the environment.
Constantly. So if you want to run a deep, complex internal program, you need 100% of your CPU available. You have to close the other apps that are running in the background.
So sensory deprivation is the key. Close the door, close the eyes, turn off the phone.
You are creating a sealed, energetic container. A sacred space, not for God, but for your own attention.
Once you have that, you move to step 2, the physiological reset. You have to manually switch your nervous system.
This is non-negotiable. You have to shift from the sympathetic to the parasympathetic nervous system.
So from fight or flight to rest and digest.
Exactly. Right now, most listeners, just by default of living in the 21st century, are probably in a low-grade sympathetic state. That's fight or flight.
The cortisol is flowing.
Even if you aren't running from a bear, the micro stresses of the day traffic, emails, deadlines keep those cortisol levels high.
And cortisol is a block to this whole process.
It's a total block. Cortisol forces blood to your extremities for survival. It literally shuts down access to the higher cognitive and spiritual functions of the prefrontal cortex. You cannot create when you are in survival mode.
So how do you flip the switch?
The source suggests a very specific technique, a biological override code, 4-4-4 breathing.
Box breathing, I've heard of this. 4 seconds in, hold for 4 seconds out.
It sounds almost too simple to work, but it's a direct hack. It forces your heart rate variability to smooth out. It sends a powerful signal to your reptilian brain that says, we're safe, the threat has passed. You have to do this for a few minutes before you start praying. Otherwise, you're just a stressed person talking to yourself.
Okay, and then step 3, which honestly, this one sounds like the hardest part for me personally, the statue technique.
Sitting ruthlessly still.
Ruthlessly. No scratching, no shifting, no adjusting your legs, nothing.
Nothing.
Why? Why is this so specific? What does it matter if I scratch an itch on my nose?
Because the body is the anchor of the ego. This is a fascinating concept from the source. The moment your mind starts to drift into the spiritual or the metaphysical, the second you start to detach, the body will invent an itch.
It's protest.
It will invent a cramp. It's trying to pull you back. It's saying, hey, remember me, we're physical, we're down here, come back to earth.
So by staying absolutely still, by ignoring that itch,
you are asserting dominance. You are detaching your consciousness from physical sensation. You are telling your body, I'm in charge here, not you. That is when the upload speed for your intention increases dramatically.
Okay, so we're isolated, we're breathing, we're statues. We are finally ready to launch the program. This brings us to phase 2, the ascent. The source outlines different modes of prayer here, and the first one is repentance. Now, again, hold on. This sounds like that guilt trip we wanted to avoid.
It does, until you read the source's definition. The source describes repentance not as groveling or self-flagellation, but as a system flush.
A system flush. Okay, like clearing the cache on your web browser.
That is the perfect analogy. Guilt, shame, lies you've told, cognitive dissonance, these are heavy, dense, energetic vibrations. They anchor you to the past. You cannot create a new future if you are energetically chained to something you did in 2015. Repentance is simply the act of cutting the anchor.
So how do you do the no-fluff version of this that the source talks about?
You don't wallow, you scan your memory for misalignments. You admit the facts without excuses. I was cowardly in that meeting. I was cruel to my spouse. You state the fact, you ask for the energetic lift, and then, this is the absolute kicker, you accept the deletion immediately.
That's the hard part. We love to punish ourselves. We feel like we have to sit in the shame for a while.
The source warns that if you keep beating yourself up after you've asked for the flush, that isn't humility. That's ego pride. It's you thinking your mistake is somehow too big for the universal system to handle.
It's a form of arrogance.
It's supreme arrogance. You have to drop it and move on. The system is clean.
Once the system is flushed, we can move to mode B petitions and request. But even here, there's a right way and a wrong way. The source makes a huge distinction between begging from lack and claiming from truth.
Yes, and this goes right back to the frequency discussion. Most people pray like this. Oh, please, please, I really hope this happens. I'm so worried it won't happen. What is that broadcasting?
Fear, doubt, desperation, lack.
It's a signal of pure lack. The legal basis approach, as the source calls it, is completely different. It's almost like you're a lawyer presenting a case in a courtroom.
Okay.
You state the need clearly, then you state why it should be answered. How does your request connect to a higher good, to a larger purpose? You aren't just asking for money to buy a boat, you're asking for resources to free up your time so you can serve your community. You connect the personal need to the universal order.
So it's like writing a grant proposal instead of just begging on the street.
That is a brilliant way to put it. You are submitting a coherent proposal. And then you use visual imprinting.
This is key. You have to see the outcome through your own eyes.
Yes. Not watching a movie of yourself getting the promotion, that dissociates you from it. You have to be in first person. Look out of your own eyes and see the new office, smell the air, feel the handshake, involve as many senses as possible.
And then you seal it with Amen.
Which the source points out doesn't mean the end or over and out. It translates to it is so or it is done. It's a stamp of conviction. You're closing the file.
There's one more mode in this phase. Intercession. Praying for others. The Source calls this defense, or even warfare.
It operates on the idea of the collective unconscious, or a shared energetic field. The idea is that your focused, coherent intent can act as a shield or a battery for someone else who is struggling. But there is a massive warning label here.
Which is?
Do not focus on the sickness. This is what almost everyone gets wrong. If you are praying for a sick friend and all you do is visualize them on the hospital bed looking pale and weak and you feel sad and worried for them,
You're just reinforcing the problem.
you're broadcasting the pattern of sickness. You're using your powerful laser to energize the very thing you want to eliminate.
That's intuitive, but it's completely counter to how we naturally worry about people we love.
Worry is using your imagination to create what you don't want. The Source says that in intercession, you have to visualize the person in their perfected state. See them strong, see them laughing, see them full of light. You are broadcasting a blueprint for their reality to match. You are holding the high ground for them when they can't hold it for themselves.
Okay, so we've sent the requests, we've uploaded the data. Now we get to a really interesting part. Section 5, Advanced Reception. This is where the Source says we have to stop talking and start listening.
This is the critical shift from uploading to downloading. And the bandwidth numbers the Source provides here are just staggering.
Lay them on me.
Your conscious mind, the part of you that talks, plans, and worries, processes information at a rate of about 40 to 50 bits per second.
40 to 50, okay.
It's a dial-up modem. It's ancient technology.
In the subconscious?
The subconscious mind processes about 11 million bits per second.
11 million?
11 million. It's a fiber optic supercomputer.
That is a humiliating difference.
It really is. But here's the issue. As long as you keep talking, as long as that internal monologue is running, you keep the low bandwidth transmitter on. You are jamming your own signal. You have to shut up, completely shut down the internal monologue to open up the high bandwidth receiver.
And this involves shifting our brainwaves again, right?
Right.
We talked about alpha and beta states.
We want to get to theta. Beta is your normal waking state stress, logic, analysis, noise. Alpha is light relaxation. But theta is that magical state you're in just before you fall asleep, or sometimes when you're driving on the highway and realize you don't remember the last 5 miles.
Highway hypnosis. I've definitely been there.
Exactly. In that theta state, the critical filter of the conscious mind drops. The bouncer goes on a coffee break. That's when the subconscious is wide open.
So what's the technique?
The technique the Source suggests is to stop the internal monologue and simply scan the silence for signal. You just listen to the quiet. When the brain is deprived of sensory data and internal talk, it starts to look for input. It's in that space that the still small voice can come through.
And it's not an audible voice.
Rarely. It's more like a direct download of information, a sudden knowing, an idea that doesn't feel like it came from you.
It also mentions a practice called visio divina, divine seeing, holding a problem in your mind without analyzing it.
Yes. Because analysis uses your old database. If you analyze a problem, you're just rearranging old furniture in your head. Holding it in silence, without judgment, allows for epiphany, which literally means new information entering the system from outside your local network.
And here comes the really hard part. Sometimes you do all this. You do the breathing, the flushing, the visualizing. You sit in the silence, and nothing happens.
The silence just stays silent.
Yeah. This Source calls this the dark night.
This is section 6. And honestly, this is the point where 90% of people quit. They say, I tried it, it didn't work, this is all nonsense, I'm out. But the Source argues this isn't failure, it's a promotion.
How can feeling completely abandoned be a promotion? That feels like spiritual gaslighting.
I know it sounds like it, but the logic is actually quite profound. It's the logic of weaning.
Weaning?
Think about a parent teaching a child to walk. In the beginning, the parent carries the child everywhere. But eventually, to get the child to develop its own muscles, the parent has to put the child down and step back.
And the child cries, of course. They feel abandoned, they don't understand.
Right. But the parent is stepping back out of love to force the child to develop their own strength. The Source says that in the beginning of a real spiritual journey, you get spiritual candy.
Spiritual candy.
Goosebumps, tears, amazing coincidences, emotional highs. It's the universe's way of saying, you're on the right track, keep going. It hooks you. But if that continued forever, you'd just be an emotional addict. You'd worship the feeling, not the reality behind the feeling.
So the candy is taken away to test your will, to see if you'll keep going without the reward.
Exactly. The question becomes, do you pray because it feels good? Or do you pray because it is right? It's the move from a transactional relationship, I pay you, you give me goods, to a covenantal relationship, I am here regardless of what I get.
There's also the crab analogy in this section regarding expansion.
I love this one. A lobster or a crab has a rigid external shell. To grow, it has to shed that shell. But in the period after it sheds the old shell and before the new one hardens, it is soft, pink, and incredibly vulnerable.
It has no defense at all.
None. It has to hide under a rock. And the dark night is that naked, vulnerable phase.
You've shattered your old, small concept of God or the universe, but the new, larger concept hasn't fully formed yet. You're in the void.
You're in the void. And the instruction is simple and brutal. Do not stop. The discipline is the prayer during those times. You are expanding your capacity to hold more truth.
And what about when the answer is just no? Or when there's no answer at all for something you've asked for?
The source uses something it calls seed logic. If you plant a seed in a garden and then every 10 minutes you dig it up to see if it's growing, what happens to the seed?
You kill it.
You kill it. Silence is gestation. Just because you can't see the activity above ground doesn't mean the root system isn't exploding underneath. You have to trust the timing. And sometimes the answer is no, out of mercy. You're being protected from a desire that would have destroyed you.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit to the linguistic side of this technology. Section 7, vibrational syntax. This feels very precise, almost like coding. It starts with the I am principle.
This is a strict rule of syntax in this system. The source argues that the phrase I am is a direct command code for the subconscious. Whatever follows I am, your subconscious accepts as an identity statement and immediately goes to work to make it true in your reality.
So if I walk around saying, I am so sick, or I'm tired all the time, or I am broke,
you are programming your biocomputer to maintain and defend that state. You are literally claiming it as your identity.
so how do we be honest without lying to ourselves? If I'm feeling sick, I can't just say I'm perfectly healthy. That feels delusional.
That's a great question. The source suggests a very specific syntax shift. You don't say, I am sick. You say, I am a healthy person who is currently experiencing symptoms of sickness.
Ah, so you acknowledge the condition as a temporary event, not a core identity.
Exactly. It's a passing weather system. It's not the climate.
Yeah.
Then you follow it with the creative I am. I am healing. I am finding the right solution. I am getting stronger every day.
It sounds like a subtle semantic difference, but I can feel the psychological shift in that.
It's massive, and specificity is the other key here. The source is very clear. Do not pray for vague things like blessings. The RAS doesn't know what a blessing looks like. It's too abstract.
Vague requests yield vague results.
Always. You need to pray for $1,200 to pay the invoice by Friday.
Yeah.
You need to pray for the discipline to wake up at 5 a.m. without hitting snooze. Specificity focuses the RAS like a heat-seeping missile. It gives the bouncer a clear photograph of who to let into the club.
Okay, so we've covered the formal session of prayer, the closet, the silence, the syntax. But Section 8 is about integration. We can't live in a closet all day. We have jobs, kids, traffic. How do you do this without ceasing, as the old texts say?
You have to learn to run it as a background process on your computer.
Like a virus scan.
Exactly like a virus scan. You can be typing a document or browsing the web in the foreground, but that scan is running in the back, cleaning things up. You learn to anchor a small part of your attention, maybe 10% to a simple mantra, or just the feeling of your breath, while your surface mind does its work.
And using what the source calls micro prayers to reset throughout the day.
This is a technique to combat entropy. Chaos and stress naturally increase during the day. By 2:00 p.m., you're usually frazzled and reactive. The source suggests creating save points like in a video game.
So every time you switch tasks,
Getting out of your car, opening a new email, walking into a meeting, you take 5 seconds. Just 5. You take one deep breath.
and a quick reset. I am here, or thy will be done.
Something simple. What it does is it dumps the accumulated stress, the allostatic load, so you don't carry the anger from your morning traffic into your afternoon meeting with your boss. You start fresh.
I also really like the idea of the sanctification of action. This idea of treating your work not as an interruption to your spiritual life, but as the arena for it.
It completely reframes every annoyance. If you pray for patience in the morning and then your most annoying coworker starts driving you crazy.
He's usually just a nuisance you have to endure.
Right. But in this framework, he is the gym equipment that has been provided to build the muscle you just asked for. You ask for patience, the universe sent you a spotter and a 300-pound weight. It changes your reaction from anger to, okay, this is the workout.
Now let's get into the biohacking section. Section 9. This is where the source really, really leans into the technology aspect of all this. We're talking about fasting, but not in the traditional religious sense of suffering for God.
No, not at all. The source defines fasting as a dopamine detox and a full system reset. Biologically, when you stop digestion, which takes a huge amount of energy, the body switches that energy over to a process called autophagy.
Which is cellular cleaning.
It's cellular cleaning. Your body literally starts to eat its own junk cells, damaged proteins, old mitochondria. It's a deep cleaning.
And what does that do for the brain, for the signal?
You get massive spikes in something called BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. It's like miracle grow for your brain. It clears the mental fog. But more importantly, spiritually, it removes the sedative.
Food is a sedative.
For many of us, yes. We eat to numb anxiety, to cope with boredom, or to suppress sadness. When you remove the food, the flesh, all those impulses, those emotions, starts to scream for its fix. Fasting forces the flesh to submit to the spirit. It reestablishes the hierarchy of who is actually in charge of your body.
Then there's somatic geometry posture. This part fascinated me. Why does it matter if my hands are raised or if I'm face down on the carpet? God can hear me from the couch, right?
It's not about God hearing you. It's about you believing you. Your body is constantly talking to your brain. Posture changes your neurochemistry.
Give me an example. The hands raised posture.
When you raise your hands, that classic praise or surrender posture, you are physically exposing your vital organs. You are exposing your heart, your lungs, your throat. In the animal kingdom, this is the ultimate sign of surrender and trust. You are sending a powerful nonverbal signal to your own mammalian brain that says, I'm safe, I am vulnerable, I am open to receive.
And prostration. Lying face down on the floor.
It does two things. First, it places your heart physically above your head, which is a powerful symbol of the heart leading the mind. Second, it deeply engages the vagus nerve, which triggers the parasympathetic relaxation response. It is a physical enactment of humility. You are physically lowering your ego. It changes your internal state instantly.
Then there's the hypnagogic bridge. This goes back to that state we talked about earlier, that window right between waking and sleeping.
The theta state. And the last thought rule here is absolutely crucial. Most people scroll their phones until they pass out. They fill their subconscious with news, drama, fear, and blue light right before sleep.
Guilty again.
The last thought you hold in your mind as you drift off becomes a seed, the primary programming instruction, for your subconscious during the entire 8-hour sleep cycle. If you worry about money right before sleep, your subconscious marinates in poverty consciousness for 8 straight hours.
So the protocol is to consciously program a specific truth or request right before you go under.
Exactly. Let the supercomputer work on the problem while the conscious mind is offline.
Section 10 covers acoustics, and it brings up glossolalia, speaking in tongues. Now, careful here. This is usually where a lot of people get uncomfortable, but the source actually cites neuroscience on this.
It does. It references a study from the University of Pennsylvania where they put people in brain scanners while they were speaking in tongues, and they found something incredible.
Well, what it?
The frontal lobes, the centers for logic and language, the parts of your brain that form sentences, went quiet.
It shut down.
Activity decreased significantly. Meanwhile, the parietal lobes, the emotional and sensory centers, stayed highly active. The source calls this a neurolinguistic bypass.
It bypasses the logic gate.
Precisely. Sometimes your logic limits your prayer. Your brain thinks, well, that's not possible, or I don't even have the words to describe this pain. Glossolalia allows you to discharge high-intensity emotion and intent without squeezing it through the tiny bottleneck of grammar or your own limited logic.
So even if you don't speak in tongues in a traditional religious sense, the advice is still to use nonverbal sound.
Groaning, humming, chanting. Let the sound out without trying to shape it into words. It can release stored trauma and emotion that words can't even touch.
And the Jericho principle, the importance of speaking out loud.
Sound waves are physical things. They displace air. They create a vibration in the room. Speaking a truth out loud overwrites your own internal monologue. If you just think, I am confident, your inner critic might argue back. But if you say it out loud, your own ears hear it. It's that principle. Faith comes by hearing. You are creating a feedback loop where you hear your own authority.
We also have to touch on environment. The idea that you can't just pray anywhere with maximum effectiveness.
You can, but the environment is a force multiplier. The source strongly suggests creating anchor spots. This is pure Pavlovian conditioning.
Like having a specific chair.
A specific chair where you only pray. You never check your phone there, you never eat there, you never argue there. Eventually, just sitting in that chair triggers the prayerful state. Your brain knows, oh, we're in the chair. It's time to go deep.
In the watch hours.
Yeah.
1 a.m. to 5 a.m. Why that specific time? It sounds absolutely painful.
It is painful, which is part of its power, but biologically, it's a time when your melatonin levels are high and your cortisol levels are at their lowest. And metaphysically, the world noise, the collective psychic static of millions of people thinking, worrying, and rushing around, is at its absolute minimum. The source calls it the Prince's Hour. It's the cleanest, quietest time for transmission.
Section 11 is titled Operational Security. This sounds like military strategy.
Yeah.
Talks about dealing with the accuser.
And we all know that voice, the one that pops up and says, who are you to ask for this? You're a hypocrite. Remember what you did last week? You don't deserve this.
The inner critic on steroids.
Absolutely. And the source's counter tactic is brilliant and counterintuitive. Do not argue with it. Agree with it.
Agree with the critic.
Yes. If you argue, you engage it in a fight, it will always win. If you say, no, I'm a good person, the voice will just bring up a mountain of evidence to the contrary. Instead, you say, you are right. I am flawed. I am messy. I am a hypocrite. That is exactly why I am here asking for help.
You completely disarm it. You take its weapon away.
You can't shame someone who has already admitted the truth. It creates what the source calls a bulletproof vest of humility.
And the distraction assault. This is a very practical one. You're deep in prayer, feeling connected, and suddenly your brain screams, I need to buy milk.
The dreaded to-do list item. The solution is the pad and pen buffer. Don't fight the thought. Don't try to suppress it because that gives it energy. Just calmly open your eyes, write buy milk on the pad next to you, and close your eyes again.
It clears the RAM.
Exactly. Once it's written down, your brain knows it's been captured and it's safe. It can let go of the reminder loop.
Okay, finally, Section 12 looks at some advanced modes. We have the vow.
This is moving from a simple request to a binding contract. If you do X for me, I will do Y for you. It puts serious skin in the game. But the warning here is extremely stern. Do not make a vow you are not 100% committed to keeping.
Why?
The psychological damage of breaking a vow to yourself or to the divine is massive. It shatters your internal authority and your self-trust. It's a very advanced and dangerous tool if misused.
And the blessing, the idea of impartation.
This is using your intent to set the reality for others. Speaking a blessing of peace and protection over your children while they sleep, or over your team before a big presentation. You are acting as the thermostat for the room, setting the energetic temperature.
The lament. This one seems really important for mental health. We often think we have to be polite and polished in prayer.
The source says the opposite. Scream, complain, be honest. Read the songs in the Bible. They are filled with raw, angry complaints. Where are you? Why is this happening to me? You have to validate the raw emotion. But you must end with the pivot.
Yet.
I am heartbroken, I am angry, I feel abandoned, yet will I trust you. That yet is the bridge. It's the most powerful word in the spiritual vocabulary. It integrates the shadow rather than suppressing it.
And finally, the scientific feedback loop. The importance of journaling.
You need an audit log. You absolutely need data to overcome the brain's natural negativity bias. We are wired to remember the unanswered prayers and forget the hundreds of answered ones.
So you track your hit rate.
You track your hit rate. I asked for this on June 1st. I received this unexpected solution on June 20th. When you look back over 6 months of data, your faith is no longer built on just feelings. It's built on a personal, empirical track record.
This has been, exhaustive. And honestly, a little exhausting just to talk about. It's a lot of work.
It is. It takes prayer out of the realm of wishing on a star and places it squarely in the realm of high-level consciousness work. It's a discipline, not a daydream.
So if we strip it all down, after all these sections and techniques, what is the final synthesis here?
The final truth is that information isn't transformation. You can listen to this whole deep dive and intellectually know all the techniques, but the difference is will.
The trench analogy.
The trench analogy from the source. You don't feel like digging a trench in the cold mud. It's hard, it's dirty, your muscles ache, but you do it because the enemy is shooting and the trench will save your life. Prayer, in this model, is the trench. You do it whether you feel like it or not.
And consistency beats intensity.
Every single time. A chaotic, emotional burst of screaming once a month does almost nothing compared to the quiet, focused, coherent laser beam you generate for 10 minutes every single morning.
So for the listener who is sitting there feeling totally overwhelmed by all these steps, the breathing, the fasting, the 3 a.m. wake-up calls, Where do they even start? Because if I try to do all of this tomorrow, I would definitely fail.
And that would be the wrong approach. The call to action from the source is incredibly simple. Do not try to do everything at once. Pick one force multiplier, just one.
Just one thing.
Maybe it's the journal. Just start tracking. Maybe
Wow.
it's the statue technique. Just 5 minutes of absolute stillness every morning. Maybe it's just the pad and pen to handle distractions. Integrate one single thing this week.
Treat it like a personal experiment. Collect your own data.
Exactly. Test the technology for yourself. See if the signal clears up even just a little bit.
And here's a thought to leave you with. If this source is even partially right, and your focused attention is a form of energy that actually shapes reality, what have you been building with your attention all day without even realizing it? What unconscious blueprints have you been sending to the factory?
That is the question that should keep all of us up at night.
Thanks for diving deep with us. We'll see you on the next one.